Well, hello everybody, wishing you a nice happy Friday. Hope the sun is shining wherever you are. And we're going to start our next part of Varjak Paw. Now when we left off, I don't know if you remember, but poor Varjak had tumbled out of the tree. He'd plummeted all the way to the bottom and it just says everything went black. Oh dear, let's see what's happened to our Varjak. Chapter 7. Varjak dreamed. He dreamed he was walking by a river in the heat of the night. Zigzag trees swayed in the warm breeze. The air smelled like cinnamon and tasted of ripe dates. He looked up. The stars were different. They sparkled big and bright in a brilliant sky. An old cat with silver blue fur like starlight walked beside him. He looked like a Mesopotamian blue, but he wore no collar and his eyes were amber, like the rising sun. "Welcome to the land of your ancestors," said the old cat. "Welcome to Mesopotamia." "Mesopotamia? Where Jalal came from?" "Jalal the Paw, yes indeed. This was his home in olden days." Varjak's pulse beat a little faster. "Did you know Jalal?" he said. "And if I did, then I'd ask you questions. Are the tales true? Could he really talk to dogs? And what would he think of me?" The old cat cackled. "Ha ha! What a question. Why should that matter to you?" Varjak looked away. "My family say I'm a disgrace to the name of Jalal. They say I'm not a proper purebred Mesopotamian blue." "Oh, and what say you? Are you worthy of your ancestors or not?" "No," said Varjak quietly. He hung his head. "I'm not." "What if you knew the secret way of Jalal? Would you then be a proper purebred Mesopotamian blue?" Poor Varjak. Varjak smiled sadly, remembering the elder Paw. "I already know about the way, and I feel just the same." "You know the way? How impressive. Perhaps you will demonstrate. Strike me." The old cat stopped walking. He blocked Varjak's path. He wasn't big, but something about him looked dangerous. Varjak stepped back a pace. "Strike me," he commanded again. His amber eyes flashed. "Strike me now, or die where you stand." Well, if that was what he wanted, why not? Varjak swiped gently at the mad old cat, meaning to tap him on the side, but somehow he didn't connect. His paws sailed through the air and thudded harmlessly on the ground. Varjak frowned. How could he have missed? The old cat combed his whiskers. "Am I too quick for you?" he challenged. "Is this the way of Jalal? I think you know nothing, little kitten." "Strike me again." This was becoming annoying. Now Varjak wanted to hit him hard. He decided to give it his best shot. There was no way he could miss. He slammed out a silver blue paw, missed completely, and lost his balance. Those alien stars twinkled at him with silent laughter as he rolled onto the riverbank. He sprang up again, furious. "Once more," goaded the old cat. Varjak's frustration boiled over. He lashed out. His paw flapped stupidly in space and he toppled to the ground. He kicked with his back legs, but he was fighting himself now and he knew it. He was beaten. His elderly opponent peered down at him. "I thought the first attack rather half-hearted," he said, as if they were having a friendly chat about the weather. "The third was crude and clumsy, as you know. The second showed potential, yes, but it was slow, terribly slow. Still, you have spirit. If you wish to learn the way, the true way, only ask and I will teach you." Varjak couldn't speak. The words stuck in his throat. He felt ashamed and embarrassed. It was obvious that this old cat knew far more about the way than him, but he couldn't bring himself to admit it. His pride wouldn't allow it. The old cat shrugged. "Farewell, then." He began to walk away. Something shifted inside Varjak, like a locked door opening. "Wait!" he called. The old cat turned about. His body shimmered in the warm breeze. "Don't go," said Varjak. I want to learn the way." The old cat smiled. "Very well, then I shall teach you. We begin now." He cleared his throat. "There are 7 skills in the way of Jalal. The first of these is open mind, and you have just found its secret. For only when you admit that you know nothing can you truly know anything." Varjak's eyes widened as the word sank in. "Who are you?" Do you still not know me, my son? Jalal? Jalal the Paw that I am, he winked. Believe none of the tales. Oh, I didn't see that coming. Chapter 8. Varjak awoke at the foot of the wall. His head was pounding, his paws aching. It wasn't quite light yet, but the night was almost over. The fall from the tree must have knocked him out. What a dream! He wondered if he'd ever have another like it. He shivered. Ooh. It was cold out in the open, and the grass beneath his body was wet. He stood up, shook the moisture from his fur, and looked around. The view cleared his head instantly. Outside was like nothing he'd seen or even dreamed of. The Contessa's house stood on top of a high hill. Beneath it was a broad green park. Beyond it, away in the distance, was the city. Stretched out under the open sky, shining like silver in the pre-dawn light, the city was a huge mad jumble of shapes and sizes. It had tall towers, gleaming steel and glass, but also squat brick houses, dark with chimney smoke. Wide open gardens jostled with narrow alleys, sharp pointy spires topped soft curved domes, concrete blocks loomed over bright painted billboards. They were all in there together, side by side, each one part of the whole. There was so much, he couldn't take it in. All he could hear from here was the wind rustling through the treetops. But down in the city, it looked noisy and bustling, a place that never went to sleep. His whiskers twitched with a mix of energy, excitement, danger. His heart beat faster, just looking at it. It seemed like a city where anything could happen, and probably did. A place you could do whatever you liked, and no one would stop you. Where you'd be able to find everything you wanted. Even a dog. The terror of the night before, the fight with the gentleman's cats, oh, it seemed a long time ago and very far away. There was sadness in his heart for the elder Paw, deep sadness. But his grandfather had trusted him with a mission. It was his duty as a Blue to save the family, and Varjak intended to see it through. He ventured down the hill. It was steeper than it looked, and soon he found himself running, almost rolling down the slope, but it was a joy to stretch out in the open. A splash of sunshine lit the horizon. He'd never seen a sunrise before, and the sky outside was alive with streaks of amber light. The sky flashed past his eyes as he sped up, sprinted to the bottom. He bounded over a fence at the foot of the hill and into the park. Around this time, back in the Contessa's house, the family would be waking up and licking each other clean. Varjak grinned. He hated washing, and already there was a satisfying build-up of mud between his claws. Next, the family would obediently munch their food out of china bowls. It would be the gentleman's vile-smelling caviar today, but now that he was outside, he wouldn't have anything to eat, anything he didn't like. He could choose what to eat and when to eat. After eating, the family would go to their litter trays. Ha! Varjak crouched by a tree. No litter tray for him today. It felt good. It felt natural. It felt, he thought, like it ought to feel. This was how it would be in the future. It was going to be the best time of his life. He'd return from the city with a dog, whatever a dog was, and defeat the gentleman and his strange black cats. Then he'd lead his family out of that stuffy old house into this wonderful new world. They'd all say he was a proper Mesopotamian Blue, a true son of Jalal. They'd offer him every kind of honour and reward, but he'd turn them down. I did it for the glory of the family, he'd say humbly, and they would cheer him even more. Varjak wandered further and further in his happy days. He barely noticed the fiery shades of sunrise burn out, leaving the sky a colour of cold ashes. A violent sound cut through his thoughts. It was like shrieking and roaring at the same time, and it scared him. The sound came from a black road that circled the park in the distance. He crept towards it, ears pressed against his skull, and then he saw them. I wonder what them are. What do you think he's seen? Let's have a look. It was a column of fearsome monsters. They were rolling down the road, roaring at each other and everything around them. Huge monsters made of metal with sharp edges all around. They had yellow eyes at the front and red eyes at the back. They moved on round black wheels, which turned so fast it made Varjak dizzy, and they belched a trail of choking smoke behind them on the wind. Could these be dogs? What do you think, children? And adults? What were the elder Paw's words? These monsters were big enough to kill a man. Their breath was foul, their sound was deafening, and they filled his heart with fear. This was it. He was sure they were dogs. He'd found them. A hard, tight ball of terror formed in Varjak's stomach. How was he supposed to talk to these monsters? He didn't look as if they'd stop for anyone, let alone a kitten. As he edged closer to the procession of metal beasts, all his happy thoughts about the future faded like a false sunrise. Slow time, moving circles, shadow walking. He shook his head. How were those words supposed to help? Why had the elder paw trusted him with such an impossible mission? Why hadn't he chosen someone older and stronger, someone like Julius? Julius might know what to do with a dog. Varjak did not. Oh, the quest was too hard. It was impossible. The ball of terror in his stomach turned into a heavy lump of despair. Don't give up, Varjak. A drop of rain splattered on his shoulder. Varjak grimaced. Ugh, he hated water on his fur. At home, he would rush in through the cat door as soon as the weather changed. If only he could do that now. He glanced at the high hill behind him. He couldn't see the house from here. A gust of wind sliced across his face. The sky darkened. A storm was coming. He could feel it. Shelter. That was what he needed. Once he was safe from the storm, he could think about the dogs, but there was no shelter in his wide-open park. There were only trees, solitary trees with no leaves swaying in the wind. They wouldn't keep him warm and dry. The sky darkened. The wind cut through his coat. Oh, Varjak could clearly see each blade of grass, each fallen leaf, trembling alone before the storm. Shelter. He had to find shelter, and fast. Rain came down from the darkening sky, thick, wet rain that dripped into his fur, weighing him down with water. Oh, he tried to shake it off, but once it started, the rain kept coming. His family were right. Outside was no place for a cat. There was no place at all. In the distance, behind the naked, shivering trees, he glimpsed something that he'd missed before. A small wooden hut. A shelter! He fought his way towards it. The rain whipped into his eyes. The wind pushed him back one step. For every two he took, the ground was turning into a churning of mud. Churning sea of mud, even. His paws slipped and sloshed wildly. Splash! Varjak fell into a pool of oozing mud. Dark, dirty water seeped out of his mouth. Ugh. It was covered in brown and green slime. He could feel it squelching all around him, soaking into his skin. The wind howled at him like a wounded animal. Too far, it howled. You've gone too far. A claw of white light slashed the belly of the sky. There was a moment of horrible silence, and then the earth juddered with thunder, shaking beneath him as if it would break in two. Help me, Jalal! He cried, but only the sky answered, bellowing again with angry thunder, making him wish he hadn't spoken. Varjak wiped the slime from his eyes and dragged himself to the hut. It smelled of soggy timber and had no windows, only a door. The door was closed. He pushed. It moved, but only a crack. Desperate, he flung himself at the flimsy wood that stood between him and shelter from the storm, and the door swung open.